log into this.
Mr. Borowski. Mr. Cora. Mrs. Rory. Mr. Oliger.
Present.
Mr. Montani. Mrs. Sexton. Mrs. Trainer. Present. Ms. Heen. Here. And Dr. Mariano.
Present. On to announcements and recognitions. Dr. Pistagna.
President, tonight we have three announcements and presentations. The board previously
Can't hear you.
We can't hear.
Can you talk closer to the mic?
We can hear you in the back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody start that over. Apologize for that. The board previously approved several studies to be conducted by outside consultants. Part of those studies were public presentations. Two of them will be held tonight. So first, we have Mr. Jason McKenna, who reviewed the board. And then finally, Ms. Wright, our business manager, and myself will give a public budget update. So I would like to start first with Mr. Jason McKenna. Jason is coming to us after just leaving London. He travels the globe teaching others about STEM education, and he has the #1 STEM classroom book on Amazon, book in STEM Blue for your classroom, which is probably one of your slides, I'm sure. So he is a world leader. We are honored to have him here with us tonight, and I'll please allow him the opportunity to show you his expertise. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pistagna. Thank you, members of the school board, and thank you all of you for spending your evening with me and giving me your full attention here this evening. I hope everyone can see the slides I have up here. If you can't see them, I apologize for that, but I'll do my best to kind of talk through them as best as I can here today. Is this okay if I stand here? If I stand here, can everybody see me? If I stand here, okay? All right. So, as Dr. Pistagna mentioned, my name is Jason McKenna. I'm the Vice President of Global Education Strategy for Veteran Lives. I'm a former classroom teacher. I taught 5th and 6th grade for 20 years at local area school district, not too far away from where I'm standing with you right here today. It's very important that I mention that to you. As many teachers that get involved in STEM education, I was voluntold to get involved with that. I do not have a background in computer science, nor do I have a background in engineering. As a matter of fact, I sometimes have a very difficult time changing a light bulb, let alone building or coding a robot. But it's important that I bring that up because anyone can do this. Anyone can teach STEM education. Anyone can do computer science. It's not, there's not a geek gene that makes some students better at this than others, and that's kind of the approach that we take in all of this. And we feel like it's very important for all of our students to become proficient at this, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this, and one of the things we'll talk about here in the presentation today. I am so passionate about, I actually wrote a book about it, as Dr. Pistagna mentioned, what STEM can do for your classroom. I wrote that book because I want the teachers to experience the same thing that I experienced. I was very reluctant. I was about 10 minutes ahead of my students when I first got started teaching STEM education. But when you find something that unlocks a lot of the things that you've been having such a difficult time doing, you want as many people to find out about it as you possibly can. I was probably in my teaching career the worst teacher when it came to things like group work. I would assign group work in my classroom and I had one student that did nothing, the second student did everything, and the third student fooled around. Until I started doing things like STEM education, all of a sudden I had a group of students that were engaged. I was terrible at things like trying to find students to find multiple ways to solve problems or greater problem solving until I introduced STEM education in my classroom. So when you find that key, you want as many students, as many teachers to find it as possible. And that's what I'm passionate about. As Dr. Pistagna mentioned, I'm lucky enough to travel the world to try to expose as many different teachers to that as possible. As Dr. Pistagna mentioned, I was lucky enough to be engaged with the school district to try to find where the current holes and gaps are in STEM education and what kind of vision we should really think about with STEM education. And luckily, in late 2024, the federal government came out with these 5 federal STEM pillars. And what these federal STEM pillars do is really present a good vision for what STEM education should be. And it's really a good vision of what we can think about what STEM education could be here at Chartiers Valley. The first pillar is fostering interest and belonging in STEM literacy. And that's really important, and it's also really important that we start that with our youngest students. As I travel, again, all over the world, I see a lot of great STEM programs. And unfortunately, a lot of those great STEM programs start when students are 10, 11, 12, or 13 years old. And while that's good, the problem with that is that the research is very clear that young students, sometimes as young as 4 or 5 or 6 years old, form an opinion about their STEM proficiency. And you hear this all the time with adults. Hey, I've always been good at math, but I've been terrible with writing, or vice versa. I'm great with numbers, but I'm terrible with writing. And once that opinion forms, it's very difficult to change. And again, that opinion forms very, very young. And unfortunately, if we don't capture students at a young age, if we don't form that STEM literacy at a very young age with students, it's very difficult to change. So starting with students in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and fostering that STEM belonging is very important. The second pillar is preparing learners and educators for future in STEM education. Of course, with things like artificial intelligence and workforce 4.0 and industry 4.0, I think we all understand the importance of that. Number 4 is, again, developing skills for critical and emerging needs, and again, preparing our students for the workforce of both today and tomorrow. The 4th one, encourage cutting-edge STEM research. So exposing as many students as possible to real-world scientists and real-world engineers. Okay? It's very important we're able to do that. One of the very first things I learned when I left the classroom and joined the quote-unquote real world was the concept of failing fast. Failing fast and learning from it. In the classroom, when I taught, failing was the worst thing that you could do. Right? That was the absolute worst possible thing that you could ever do was fail. Then I entered the business world, and I was told I wasn't failing enough. Because that's how you learn. Iteration was something I was encouraged. You had to fail. You had to fail all the time. If you weren't failing fast enough, you weren't doing your job. It's a totally foreign concept to me. It took me a long time to be able to learn that. It was the exact opposite thing that I was teaching my students in my classroom. Exact opposite thing that I was taught to do when I was in college myself. So oftentimes what we do in our classroom is the exact opposite of what students are expected to do once they enter the quote-unquote real world. So how we get over that is exposing our students to the real world as often as we possibly can. And then the last one, ensure inclusive and supporting STEM participation. If we feel that all these things are important, it's not important for just the top 10% of our students or the top 5% of our students, but all of our students. Okay, that's something you're going to hear throughout this presentation, is the importance of this for all of our students, and all means all. Okay? Again, why STEM? This is important not just for our STEM subjects, what we consider STEM, whether it's computer science or engineering, but all learning involves all of these particular subjects. You think about skills like spatial reasoning, if you think about executive functioning, if you think about inhibitory control, what research tells us, what learning science tells us, that all of these things is an interconnected web within our learning. Oftentimes we refer to this as school readiness for our children. All of these things are connected together, okay? And all of these things have to be fostered together amongst our students. And learning science also tells us that the best way for us to learn these things is for our students to be engaged in hands-on, minds-on learning. We often do in our STEM classrooms. This isn't just going to prepare our students to be software engineers or mechanical engineers. It's also going to help them with their literacy. It's also going to help them with their writing. It's also going to help them with their critical and creative thinking that can be applied to any subject or any other domain. And we know this just intuitively, anecdotally. Okay, the example I gave the board when I presented this earlier to them is if I unfortunately or tragically get in a car accident on the way home tonight, and I suffer some type of brain injury, the very first thing that they're going to teach me is motor skills. They're gonna teach me how to walk again. They're gonna teach me how to use my hands again. They're gonna teach me how to catch the ball and do all those particular types of things. Why is that? The reason why that is because we first learn with our eyes and with our hands and with our feet. That's how we learn, okay? But sometimes in our classrooms we forget that. And we feel like by giving our students more worksheets, that's the best way for them to learn. It's not the best way for them to learn, okay? So these STEM subjects, by giving them these STEM, these applications of STEM, it's not just going to improve their STEM learning, it's going to improve all their learning, okay? So how do we actually go through those 5 pillars? How do we actually engage them? STEM engagement, I already talked about this. We're big believers in this idea of starting STEM early. So making sure that all of our students have an opportunity to begin STEM at our earliest grade levels. It's something that doesn't just happen one day a week. It's not just a special, but instead it's something that's incorporated into the core academic subjects as often as we possibly can, okay? We also connect STEM to the community. So we have open houses, so you as the community members have an opportunity to engage the students and see what's actually going on in their classrooms. We have robotics competitions at elementary, middle school, and high school levels. So you again have an opportunity to see what the students are doing with them. We have an opportunity for high school students to engage with the elementary students, doing the same type of things. We have engagement with all different levels through all different means to engage as many students as we possibly can in STEM education, okay? Again, this idea of STEM teaching and learning, we present a scaffolded pathway so students have an opportunity to build upon their skills through elementary school, middle school, all the way through high school. So just as you think about every other subject, right? You don't introduce math in middle school and then continue through high school. You don't introduce science just in high school, but instead you have a scaffolded learning journey in which students have an opportunity to grow their skills from grade level to grade level, but also, importantly, teachers have an opportunity to build their capacity from grade level to grade level. When I taught, okay, and I had an issue with teaching 6th grade math class, I would walk down the hall, I'd knock on the door of our 8th grade pre-algebra teacher, his name was Jeff, and I would say, hey Jeff, I'm having a hard time teaching my students how to solve one-step equations. Can you give me some advice? What should I do? How can you help me here? But in STEM, that analogy oftentimes doesn't exist. Why is that? Because you have one STEM teacher in the school. Because STEM is not embedded as a culture throughout your entire school district. You don't have this integrated learning pathway throughout your entire school. So you have 1 or 2 STEM teachers. And you don't build capacity not only amongst your students, but also amongst your teachers. You have a professional learning community amongst your teachers. And as a result of that, you don't grow this STEM learning pathway in your school. And the students have an opportunity to experience those learning outcomes that I talked about previously. STEM workforce development, okay? Talked about this, but giving students the opportunity, beginning their freshman year, to explore different STEM careers. There are STEM careers growing every single day. Something like computational biology, that's a field that didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. There are fields being created and destroyed by artificial intelligence every single day. So how do we keep up with that, right? The only way that we do that is we create and develop and maintain a curriculum beginning their freshman year that students have an opportunity to explore these types of things. Their sophomore year, they build the technical skills through these hands-on courses, and then their juniors and seniors year, they go out and have an opportunity to explore these different careers. At my job at Dexter Robotics, I have an opportunity to hire and fire a lot of different people. All over the world. We have offices in Australia, Luxembourg, Canada, Hong Kong. I hire and fire people all over. I don't say it to try to brag. The reason why I say this, I thought I had one person in the last 5 to 6 years say to me, you know what, Jason? I work well for a boss that gives me feedback this way. I work well in a group setting that works this way. I don't work well for a boss that gives me feedback this way. You know why no one's told me that? Because they don't know. Because our colleges aren't preparing them for that. You know how valuable that would be for an employer that actually have someone interview and say, I take feedback very well this way. I work very well in a remote setting this way. We don't give students those experiences. We don't prepare students to go to work. So what ends up happening? This person goes to work. We spend all this money on HR to prepare them. We spend all this money on onboarding, and 8 months later, they're gone. And all that money's out the window, and I got to spend all this more money to go hire somebody else. Because this person had no idea what environment they actually work in the best. What if we're able to actually do that in high school? What if we're able to prepare students so they got high school, they got Chartiers Valley knowing what type of environment they work the best in? That's the goal of this here. Instead of research and innovation, we want to connect as many students to as many real-world scientists and engineers as we possibly can. That means that just talking about, but also having them participate in actual real-world science. Having these students publish papers with real-world scientists. Okay? Having them go and present real research with real-world scientists. That'd be a goal that we want to have them do. We want students to participate in actual science with real scientists. And then finally, this is the inclusion aspect that we talked about again. This applies for all students. Okay, students with IEPs, students with cognitive impairments, students with physical impairments. We want to make sure, and we want to think about these students from the very beginning. The biggest problem that you have with this is the blueberry muffin analogy that was taught to me by Louis Lopez, who works for CAS, which is a nonprofit that creates universal design for learning standards. When you make a blueberry muffin, right, you put the blueberries in the batter from the very beginning. That's how you make a good blueberry muffin. But oftentimes what happens with students, okay, or special needs students, is we try to shove the blueberries in the muffin at the very end. Because we think about them at the end, right? We make this great program, and at the very end we say, what are we going to do about students with special needs? That's the wrong way to do it, okay? It's not how we should do it. Think about these students from the very beginning. And that's what we're going to do with this program. We're going to think about those students from the very beginning. How do we include all of these students from the very beginning and make sure that they are all included from the very beginning? Okay? This is the plan. This is obviously a rough plan that we have outlined right now. But one of the things I mentioned is daily STEM integration, beginning with our elementary students, K-6. Then we'll do a computer science integration, introduce foundational coding in elementary school, begin incorporating artificial intelligence, leaning on the AI for 4K-12 standards, middle school and high school expansion, transition to STEM focus in the middle school and high school tech ed courses, leverage high school engineering classes for real-world projects and scientific investigations, and then obviously a big part of this is going to be leveraging our teachers. So a big part of this is going to be pedagogy, right? Making sure that the curriculum actually matches the pedagogy that we want to match with this. We want to have ambitious teaching when we do this, whether it's around scientific discourse, real-world problems. We obviously want to have great project-based learning to incorporate all the things that we'll be able to do this, and I'm looking forward to working with our stakeholders to make sure that we can make this happen. Okay? Metrics, we got to measure to make sure that we're actually doing this correctly. We will have metrics around engagement, right? The students actually enjoy what it is that we are doing. You can have great metrics around learning outcomes, right? But if the students hate the class and want to do it again, then what's the point of those learning outcomes, right? So you want to make sure that you have great outcomes around engagement. Do students actually want to go back to what I said about before? The students actually now, beginning at young ages, see themselves wanting to become engineers as they get older. They see themselves potentially becoming computer scientists as they get older. They understand these concepts and potentially want to pursue these things. They see themselves as enjoying school. Do teachers actually enjoy teaching these subjects, understand what it is that they are doing? Obviously, we want to improve our learning outcomes and skill development. And then what about you as a community? Okay, as you come to these different robotics events, you come to these STEM like things that we're doing, do you have satisfaction for what you are doing also? So being able to take all that information and take the information and make adjustments to the programs as they, we're not going to get it 100% right out of the bat, obviously, but being able to adjust and pivot as needed is going to be an important part of this. Okay? That's it. All right. Do we do questions now at the end?
Is there anyone in the public, obviously he's a wealth of knowledge around STEM education, he successfully built programs from the Questions for Mr. McKenna? Yes.
I know it's subtle, but why STEM and not STEAM? Because I'm thinking about more creative kids that may not want to be engineers.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. The reason why I bring it up, the analogy I give to this is when they were debating whether to create the World War II Museum in Washington, D.C., right? I read this person that gave this argument. He said, all of Washington, D.C. is a monument to the people that fought in World War II. So any type of museum is actually a distraction away from what you can never actually go to a monument that actually is a testament to what they were actually able to do. I view art in the same way in what you're actually doing with STEM education. So what do I mean by that? If you're making any type of device from an engineering perspective, it has to be aesthetically pleasing to the user or it's not going to be used effectively, right? So to me, to call it out actually diminishes the actual and real purpose of it by calling it out. Now, with all that being said, that's my perspective on it. I'm happy to be wrong about it. So if the administration and the teachers feel that by calling out the A is an important thing, then I'm happy to call it out. You're very welcome.
First of all, I want to say it's lovely to hear us talking about spending money on something that's actually going to impact our children's education. But I wanted to ask, so I feel like STEM is something that CV does well with our robotics program in the high school and the STEM classes in the elementary schools. My question is, does what you're offering replace all of that, or is it something to enhance programs we already have?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I live in an and world, not an or world. So the answer to your question, yes, it would augment what we already have right now. The robotics program that you have at the high school is a fantastic program. There's about 15 to 20 kids in that program right now. I'd like to see us increase that by about 500%. Going from high school, middle school, and elementary school. So obviously, no plans to jettison what they're doing at the high school, but I would like to see that, like I said, increase by a lot. In addition to that, have feeder programs in the middle school and have feeder programs in the elementary school. They have great programs going on at the elementary school, but right now they're doing it one day a week. I want to see them do it every day. So it's an augmentation on replacement.
Thank you.
You're like speaking on how motor skills are going to improve our learning by seeing it, doing it, kind of feeling around what we're doing. But how is sitting at a computer and coding, learning how to code, how is that going to help high schoolers that already have that predetermined like, knowledge? We don't need to learn how to code, we need to learn how to apply coding, stuff like that. It doesn't work for us.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So you're not going to sit passive behind a computer and learn how to code. That's why I like to say that drive forward is the new hello world. That's where robotics comes into it. So if you think about why the metrics behind computer science education are so poor and why many computer science courses are taught so poorly, that's exactly why. They're taught very passively, and the students are restricted behind the computer, whereas robotics takes a lot of those abstract concepts behind computer science and makes them concrete because I'm applying them all to the robot. I could be actually constructing a robot and then seeing that robot move, but just at a bare minimum, I'm actually have the robot itself, and I'm actually working the robot in a group setting, and I'm not tied to a computer. So there will be no sitting passively just behind a computer and just coding on a computer. It's much more hands-on, and then the robot is what actually brings the computer science to life. Computer science as a science was developed back in the 1950s and 60s to solve STEM problems. That's why computer science was actually created by the pioneers of computer science. In education, we've lost that, and we've siloed it into this one particular thing. You can apply it in different things. You can apply it to things like data science, other things, but robotics is a great way to apply it because it brings that hands-on nature, it makes it more engaging, it makes it more exciting for it, just as you mentioned too. But you've identified the big problem of teaching computer science right now. That's what we won't do. Instead, we want to make it much more engaging and exciting. Here's all of this.
Yeah, last thing I just wanted to ask you. It's because like computer science is becoming obsolete because of stuff like AI, and I think that's why it's not being taught as much. So what is the importance of teaching it now, especially when AI is continuously
I would say computer science is not becoming obsolete. AI is a branch of computer science, just like there are other branches of computer science. I would say now it's more important to teach computer science because kids need to learn the fundamentals of computer science. They actually know what is actually going on with AI. They can understand AI. Just like we need to teach biology so kids can understand the world around them. When we teach computer science, the kids can actually understand what AI is and make informed judgments about it. Yes, sir.
Financial implications? Cost?
Well, we don't have any ideas what the cost is because we actually have to implement the program and decide what it is right now. It can be anything from 0 upwards to whatever it can actually be. A lot of these stuff, like you can implement STEM using cardboard and plastic. You can implement STEM spending tens of thousands of dollars. It's really what the board wants to be able to do, what the community wants to be able to adopt. As I said, I've implemented this.
Who will teach the program?
I'm sorry?
Who will teach the program?
Teacher would teach the program.
The current teachers are on staff now?
Yes.
Any kind of subsequent training needed for that?
Yes.
Okay, cost effectiveness, what does that cost?
That costs you nothing.
So the whole program can be, they can be trained and brought in for nothing.
Well, I mean, teachers would have to be trained. That would be time. I can't comment on the time for that because I am not familiar with the teacher's contract and the time for that. But the actual professional development for that is offered for free, but the time would have to be compensated for, to your point, yes. Sure. Yes.
I just had I don't know if this is something that you would know, but we have, in this area, Remake Learning, and they give out a lot of grants and such, which we have used before. Would your programming potentially fall in as like something that we could use a grant from Remake Learning? Like, could we apply that towards, does it fall within, do you know Remake Learning?
I'm actually on the Remake Learning Council.
Okay, well, is that a conflict of interest?
It's not a conflict of interest. Yes,
Okay.
you can use Remake Learning grants, you can use PA Smart grants, you can use all those different types of grants for this, yes, potentially, yes.
I just want to add something there real quick. To your point about the cost, that's going to determine on how far the board wants to ingrain this into our curriculum. Our goal is to make this co-curricular, like reading, math, science, and social studies. If we aren't teaching our students STEM, then we aren't preparing them for the jobs of the future, simply put. Second, when you speak to the Remake Learning, he and I worked together in my previous school district, created a co-curricular STEM program, then created a unified robotics program where we took students in special education, paired them with their peers that are in regular education. Like we have a unified watching program here at Chartiers Valley. Because of that unified robotics model, we received a grant from Remake Learning for $35,000. They just received it for 11. But that was because we built this, and then grant funders want to see something working and then fund it. They don't want your idea and they don't want to fund it up front. They want you to do it and then go out there and ask for the money. But yes, that is part of our plan, and he's on that board now.
Yes.
With our current educational plan, implementing something like this, will it be taking away anything that's already there? Like, our students, like, what would, on a day-to-day basis of our students, would they be losing certain education they're receiving right now in order to implement this program?
So the way that I define the best way to implement STEM, right? So when I talk about what STEM is, I don't like to view STEM as a STEM itself, right? I like to see STEM applied as a way for students to apply what they're learning in the regular educational classrooms in a meaningful way, right? So students see problems in the world around them, right? So how do we allow them to apply what they're learning in the science class, in the math class, in the language arts class, to solve those problems in the world around them? That's what STEM really should be. Now, that time has to come from somewhere, right? From where that time is, I can't obviously answer that for you, but to Dr. Gustavo's point, that's what they should be doing anyways, right? That's from an educational standpoint, that's what they should be doing. So what we want to be able to arm the teachers with, to the gentleman's question from 2 questions ago, what we want to be able to arm the teachers with is what is the best way and what is the best means for them to be able to do that. Now, as they get into the middle school and the high school, they obviously have dedicated classes for them to be able to do that. The trick is for them to find the best time to be able to do it from an elementary perspective. Now, the argument that, not the argument, but the potential pushback that you would get from an elementary parent or an elementary teacher is, well, I have to be able to teach my kids sight words, or I have to be able to teach my kids multiplication facts and things like that. And that's why I had the Y STEM slide, and it was my 3rd slide up there. And the reason why that's so important is the application of those skills was actually going to be able for you to teach those things better anyways. I think we can all agree that, you know, more math worksheets is not the answer in terms of being able to teach your students multiplication facts better. So we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to learn those things well, and actually an opportunity to understand those things better, and we feel this is the best way to be able to do that. So it's not really a takeaway of anything, instead it's an application of those foundational skills, hopefully in a better way. Did that answer your question?
No, yes, it does, thank you.
It really depends on what will actually be implemented. Obviously for like the middle school and high school courses, if we're going to implement a course on the basics of artificial intelligence for a high school computer science course using an AI vision sensor, that's going to be a little bit more of an in-depth course, it might be a little bit longer. If we're going to do something that I just talked about, with this question over here about how to apply STEM in an elementary classroom around, you know, an elementary math classroom, that's going to be a little bit less, it's going to be a little bit more of an ongoing thing. So maybe you do like a 1 week thing at the beginning, but you provide touch points kind of going after that. It's not a cookie cutter thing, it really just depends upon what they're doing right now. As someone asked about 15 minutes ago, they are doing some good STEM things right now, so it's not going to be a complete and total overhaul. It's really saying, okay, here's what you're doing right now, here's what we can take us to the next, kind of the next level. Did I answer your question? Somewhat, yeah.
So the training we're providing to the teachers, is that going to be available to the board and to the public?
So I don't think the entire training will be available to the public, but an update will certainly be developed to the public. Here's what we're doing, here's kind of what the training was involved, here's kind of an overview of it, kind of a thing like that, yeah.
I want to follow up to that, is on the go live date, is someone from your company going to be on site to watch the process? And
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There would be a subject matter expert on site?
Yes.
Going forward, how far into a school year would they be on site?
So, let me answer that, Ken, just real quick. So, the plan would be, obviously, we want to get here in January, right? Our plan would be, I said it's January, and we want to get him on site to do his analysis and make his recommendation. Where we go from here is to craft a program and then tier that, let the board ultimately tell us what direction they want to go. And then we come back to the public and make it part of our plan of studies to begin in September 1 of this year, right? If they do, his company is based out of the King, they're a global company, but they have a Pittsburgh office, and they have a lot of reach with Carnegie Mellon University. So because they're local to 20 miles from our district, and when I rolled this out of districts in the past, they are on site and close touch to our district at all times. So, but all of this would be explained publicly before the board would have to formally adopt a plan to roll this out into the fall. This is just a very basic presentation to get his hands into what we're doing. These were great questions, a great discussion, by the way, by the public. I thank you all for that. But just so you know, this isn't the end of this discussion, and before we roll anything out, we come back to the public. And ask for formal. We're not going to leave the teachers out this route, to kind of answer your question. It won't be, you know, that's honestly what happened to me, like when I taught, like a curriculum company would come, they'd do 3 days of PD, and then it'd be like, see you later, and then I was sitting there like in November and all these questions, there's no one there to answer them for me. That will not happen. We'll make sure that does happen. So we'll make sure that there will be people that will be on the ground to answer whatever questions the teachers may have. Yes. It's an unfurling. It's a multi-layer process. Yes.
It's not like the teachers and other most districts might have 4 or 5 professional development days, but you would have to spread that out over many years, because it needs to integrate in what we currently do and then morph into something new.
So would it be beneficial for a 9th grader or a 12th grader or a senior? I'm not a senior for next year, but which benefits would a senior get out of STEM if it's implemented for next school year?
So I have, there is one of my favorite people. Her name is Marie Timms. She is a teacher in Australia. Her first year as a robotics coach, her first robotics team, there's a gentleman on that first robotics team. So he was a senior in her school. He was on her first robotics team. He was a senior. He is now designing a lunar rover for, I can't remember the name of it, for whatever the NASA is in Australia right now. And he was put on that path from being on her robotics team his senior year at his school. So is that going to happen here? I don't know. Could it potentially happen here? Absolutely. That's one story. I get stories like that all the time. I was at state robotics competition in Tennessee. In line to buy a hamburger because I was hungry at lunch. I had a woman tap me on my shoulder. I turned around. She was volunteering to be a judge. She said, "You don't know me, but I know you. You're Jason McKenna." She goes, "My son, his entire life, hated school. His junior year, he joined a robotics team. It absolutely changed his life. He's now a junior at Stanford. He's studying engineering. I just want to take this time and say thank you and buy your lunch for you." I said, "You don't have to buy your lunch for me. That message was just enough. Thank you very much." I got 100 stories like that. So will that happen here? No, but that's the goal. That's what will happen.
I got a story for you. I am one of those robotic kids from the 80s.
Oh, nice.
I was working for a company, it was Mobile Chemical, Bayer, Vestro, and it's heavy machinery, and you're talking about engineers and designers. Mechanics is what you need. And how I got interested in it, you want to talk grade school, then you have to do with toys and games. But in middle school was the shop classes, which were mandatory for the Grand Landfill back in the 70s. So there wasn't any robotics programs in Lebo. What we had was Votex, Parkway West. And so I developed my skills and interests through the shop classes and Votex because I wasn't academically sound because I was in the 80s. But I've been in the business for over 35 years now, 33 years in my job. Now I'm ready to retire in a few years. So, in the company I work for, we work through South Fayette and Cannon Mac. We actually hired testers. They're Megatronics programs. And I don't think it's a STEM program. It goes through CCAC.
Megatronics, yeah.
It goes through CCAC. We hired techs, and the third one we finished with associate's degree. So you want to do engineers, you want to get the nitty gritty kids, the ones that maybe are the C average. You're going to find them in shop classes. And then your program it's a lot of what I noticed is electrical based, coding based, because you need the mechanics part, the actual turning of the wrenches, the turning of the metal, the taking design from the CAD to that. Now I've seen the program here at CV, and some of the kids that go through it's a good program. I actually talk to some in business hours. I think Bayer Material Science actually sponsors it. So if you want to spark interest, it's going to be in definitely in middle school and in the shop class in some school. You know, all the engineers.
All the above, I agree. All the above. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, we're gonna move on just because we have a lot still on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. McKenna. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
For the great discussion. sure if we watch 11 o'clock news tonight, there's great discussion about STEM education going on. So we thank you all for being here tonight. I'm just joking. Okay, now we're going to move on to our curriculum study. Ms. Bernard Ford, she's going to present on the study she conducted in the district. She did present some specific staffing details to the board in her executive session, but she does have a version of her presentation that she wanted to do in public.
Thank you. And before I start, I'd just like to say a special thank you to board members. I know this is Board Member Recognition Month, and you're in a thankless job. Our business manager from the Belfont School District where I came from used to say that each year he would double the pay of the board members because they had done such a great job. But your only thank you get, as I well know, is basically what you do intrinsically to help kids in your district. My name is Tammy Bernard. I am a recovering and retired superintendent from the Belfont Area School District. I have 38 years in education. I was an elementary teacher, an elementary principal, an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, and then a superintendent during the COVID times. I was asked back in August to do a complete curriculum analysis for the district. At the time, curriculum is very intriguing to me, and at the time it sounded like a good idea, but I ran into some roadblocks. I was asked for a proposal. Thank you. So the original proposal I had was a complete analysis of curriculum for grades K to 12, to include but not limited to an analysis of all the written curriculum, everything that has been written down that Chartiers Valley says that we're going to teach. An analysis of all the taught curriculum, because there's a big difference. I came back from the 80s, back in the 1900s, and we used to write curriculum and it was very nice on the shelf and nobody ever really looked at it. So we've been trying to bridge that of what is the written curriculum and what is the taught curriculum. Analysis of both horizontal and vertical alignment of curriculum. So it's not enough to just say, okay, we teach these skills in math in kindergarten, but how does that progress till the students get to 12th grade? How does that look across all the kindergartens? Are they all getting the same kind of math instruction? And specifically, I was asked to align or to look at the alignment of the PA standards for each of the curriculum. And then an analysis of the delivery of curriculum as it relates to the most efficient, appropriate, and best instructional practices. That's where I got stumbling a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then a final written report of all the analyses, and I'll include some suggestions and recommendations also. I'm not selling anything. I just have a list of some ideas. They may or may not work for Chartiers Valley. They may or may not be good for the students here, or the teachers or the staff. They're just ideas that I'm throwing out. So, the methodology. I held a virtual meeting with Dr. Julie Franzen back in September, and we sat down and talked through all kinds of curriculum. She was excellent. She was very helpful in talking about what was the written curriculum and what she had noticed as far as the taught curriculum, and as far as instruction goes and assessment, which we'll get to. I visited all of the schools on September 29th, which was the best day. I still have a lot of kids, and so spending the day with kids was just a wonderful day. Very welcoming staff, very welcoming students. It was a great day. I did an extensive review of curriculum in something called Atlas. The district has adopted a program called Atlas, and Atlas is a warehousing for all the written curriculum, and I'll talk more about that. And then there was some curriculum that was not in Atlas, so I was handed paper copies or sent paper copies of different curriculum. And then I did a compilation of the data, and I wrote the report, and then I reviewed that report with the administrators and with the board in executive session. This is my own little, I guess, idea. I call it the CIA. The CIA stands for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessments. Oftentimes, people will say, what's your curriculum at Belfont? And what they're asking is what the program is. For example, they think that the curriculum for math in elementary is everyday math. It is not the curriculum. The curriculum is what we want students to know and be able to do at the completion of that course. So the instruction is the resource piece. That's the resources that you use. And then, of course, you have the assessment piece. And assessments are incredibly important in determining the effectiveness of the learning or the effectiveness of student achievement. There's several different kinds of assessment. There's formative, where you kind of like, okay, I need to know what kids know before I can teach them, because if I don't know what they know, I don't know what I can teach them. And then you have the summative, which are much like the end of course units or end of test, end of the specific learning objectives you have. And finally, there's informal versus formal. Assessment can be very informal. It can be a check-in, check-out with students when they come in and out of the room. It can be something formal, written text. Just as a side note, PSSAs and Keystones are a type of summative assessment, and they are one snapshot at a time. However, they're a valuable piece of information because they do give you some insight into what's happening in your curriculum and instruction if you go through the data and you analyze it that way. Assessments are key, and that's one of the things that I didn't find a lot of, and I'll explain. So, the program that is used is called Atlas. Atlas is based on understanding by design. Understanding by design was developed by two researchers, Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe, and it is considered the gold standard of curriculum writing. However, it is not always the best way to do some curriculum analysis if there's nothing written in Atlas, because that's where we're in the stumbling block. There were a lot of curricula that were not written in Atlas that made it very difficult to analyze. And we'll talk about that. Atlas follows the UBD theories. UBD is understanding by design. And Atlas follows all of those theories. And it really aligns quite nicely. There is a training module within Atlas. So if the teachers are going to write the curriculum and put in Atlas, there is an internal training that you can do, which I did. I went through it, to see what it looked like and things. So the stages in Atlas, there's 3 stages when teachers write curriculum. Stage 1 is, what's the purpose of the unit? What are the major takeaways? And so that's like the content. That's the what. What are we going to teach? What are the standards? What do we want kids to know and be able to do? What are the essential questions that we want them to be able to answer at the end of the unit? Stage 2 is how we engage student learning. That's the assessment piece. And then stage 3 is how will the students learn? That's the best practices. That's the teaching piece of all of it. And the teaching piece of all of it, you also have to consider, like the blueberries, the modifications and the combinations. And I agree, they need to start from the beginning. So, not to be outdone, because I've gotten so many different pieces of curriculum for the district, I decided that, okay, UBD is the gold standard, it's in Atlas, the district uses Atlas, but what if I use AI to ask what the ideal curriculum would be for elementary? What is the ideal curriculum for intermediate students? What does the ideal curriculum look like for middle school and high school? So I did 2-pronged. I did the Atlas analysis, and then I did what AI generated through ChatGPT of what an ideal curriculum would look like. At the elementary level, which is both primary and intermediate, I found about 29 courses in Atlas. And in those 29 courses in Atlas, there are science courses for K-5. So they do have a written curriculum. But again, we're back to that, I don't know what the taught curriculum is. So most of them have stage 1 complete at the elementary level. And the special areas, art, music, phys ed, those are the ones that are missing. Those are also the ones that don't necessarily have typical state standards with them. They don't have a typical academic standard. They may use a national standard. They don't always align well with PA standards. But that doesn't mean that you can't incorporate some of the PA standards into those specialty areas through those cross-curricular ideas that were shared. And in AI, the AI analysis said both primary and intermediate curricula seem to have many of the positive connections to the ChatGPT ideal curriculum, but there's no proof. I can only tell you what's written. I can't tell you what is actually taught. At the elementary level, again, these are just a few recommendations, and they may not work, and I have an extensive list in the report that the administration and the board might want to consider. Some of them are free, some of them may cost some training money, or professional learning, which by the way, in Belmont, we switched to using the words professional learning instead of professional development, because we're not developing anybody, we're trying to grow our own professional learning, we're trying to become better educators. So professional learning, you'll hear me talk a lot about professional learning as opposed to professional development. And I am also sorry, this is my disclaimer to compare a lot of Chartiers Valley with Belmont, but I spent 21 years at Belmont. Belmont is very close to the same size and has a very similar budget as Chartiers Valley. So that's my point of reference, doesn't mean it's right at all. It's just the point of reference that I have. So at the elementary level, there's some excellent work, some very excellent work in the curriculum. It just needs to be finished in Atlas for stage 2 and 3. The grade 5 curriculum overall is very well written and very well done. Finish stage 2 and stage 3 for each course. For the instruction piece, use standards, link standards to units. So one of the ways to find out if the standards are being, at least in the written curriculum, is to put them in the written curriculum. So linking those standards to both the instruction and to the assessment, will be helpful. And then, after talking to the administration, I really feel like Chartiers Valley needs a comprehensive assessment plan. So what are we assessing the kids for? Because I'll tell you, you can also assess kids to the point where you don't teach anything, because you spend all your time assessing them. So you need a comprehensive plan to say, okay, how do we get our most bang for the buck in data? What can we use? What can we use at the primary level? Are we using dibbles? Are we using, I don't know, there's about 10 different things out there. Or are we, not even assessing? What are we using for the MTSS model, which there is one.
Acadians, yeah.
Acadians, is that what you're using? Acadians. Which is the old dibbles.
Old dibbles.
Yeah. So anyway, so developing a comprehensive assessment plan and then create common formative and summative assessments. So at the elementary level, perhaps all of the 5th grade math teachers get the same 5th grade unit math test so that we can see. And that is in place in a lot of places. The elementary is in pretty good shape, as I've said. And then use the data to review the curriculum to see how effective the curriculum is and how student learning is happening. At middle school, I don't know, maybe. There we go. So in middle school, there are about 56 courses either listed in Atlas or I was handed paper copies or sent paper copies. About 40 of those courses have stage 1 information, kind of what do we want the kids to learn. Several missing core, including some literature and math courses and elective courses, which made it difficult then to align it to PA standards because they weren't there. And then less than half have any stage 2 or stage 3 information in Atlas. Again, in AI, there are some positive connections in the middle school curriculum to the ideal curriculum according to ChatGPT, but there's not sufficient evidence to say, okay, here's the top curriculum, or here's the written curriculum, what is the top curriculum? That's an overriding theme. Middle school recommendations are very much like the elementary, fully developed curriculum, link the standards to units, lesson plans, evaluate the resources. I have a list of resources. A word about resources. So I'm going to use Everyday Math again. Everyday Math was written probably most likely for Texas or California, and it matches Texas and California standards because they do statewide adoptions. It doesn't necessarily match Pennsylvania. And if you have a good publisher, they will give you what's called a crosswalk that tells you what you're missing out of Pennsylvania. However, I don't know what the extent of that is being used in those resources. It may very well be done, I don't know. And then assessment, link the standards to assessment, develop a comprehensive assessment plan for middle school as well. One of the things I don't have up here is the idea of implementing data conferencing with students. Middle school students, when you show them their data on whatever formative or summative assessment you want, and have them develop goals is very, very research sound and very, very effective in helping kids set their own learning goals. And then we use the data to review the curriculum, the effectiveness of the curriculum and instruction. The high school is where I ran into problems. So there are 187 courses listed, in either atlas or in written form. 187 are a lot. And so that's what the stumbling block became. There's only about 59 courses that have any stage 1 information, so what I did is, even if it wasn't an atlas, I looked to see if it would have the stage 1 information, and 59 of the courses did, about 59 of them did, out of 187. And then only about 10 courses have any stage 2 information, and none, the 187, have any of the stage 3. If you recall, stage 3 are modifications, how it's being taught, the best instructional practices, those kinds of things. And then AI is the same deficiencies. You know, it's written, and it sounds like it's good, but I don't know for sure what's being taught. I broke it down by department. And one of the reasons I did this was because, again, some of this came through Atlas, and some of it came through the handwritten curriculum that I got. I know that Dr. Francis and at the time, I believe it was Mr. Sable, were working very hard to try to get me copies of things. If you notice, if you break it down, there's a lot of subject areas that are doing okay, and a lot that are not. And part of that might be because, as was shared with me, is there's a curriculum review cycle for writing curriculum, and there isn't. Some of those may not have gotten to it yet. But my question is, okay, that's fine. Atlas is only 2 years old. What were we teaching 10 years ago? I mean, what was going on? I mean, I don't know. So we couldn't even dig up some of those courses. For example, applied engineering and technology. There are 31 courses listed either in the course studies book or in Atlas or in handwritten, and none of them have any information. Now, this may make sense because perhaps we didn't have those courses 10 years ago. That's very possible. But when it comes to things like, let me find another one. Well, computer science. There are 6 courses listed and 0 have any curriculum information at the high school level. Social studies has 14 courses, 8 of them have information. Now that was given to me in handwriting, in hard copy format. The question is though, what was being taught before that, before we even had Atlas? And then I have a long list of recommendations for high school. Develop the written curriculum, get that done. Limit the number of electives available. Kids have to take something though. You can't just say, okay, we're going to eliminate the entire whatever department, art department, please don't say I said that, but you can't just, the kids have to take something. They have to have something that they enjoy, something they want to learn. So you can't just eliminate courses, but you need to look at those courses, what's being provided, and the overlap that might be in them. And a good place to look for overlap is in the Parkway West curriculum. It seems that there's some shop classes, that's again a 1900s term, shop classes overlap from what's offered here at Chartiers Valley and what's also offered at Parkway West. And there could be a scheduling conflict that way too. As you notice, I'm telling you, these are the things I found, but I've also tried to process what could be happening or how, these things could have occurred. And then finally, explore cross-curricular options to connect all things to the PA standards, which goes along with the STEM idea, is that, again, my examples of Belfon is that we have had STEM completely incorporated from kindergarten on. We received a grant, it's called a Science Elementary Grant back in the Brendel days. And so it is, this is my unplug for you, it is amazing to see kindergartners who are so inquisitive anyway, who want to figure things out. And you don't always have the brightest kids say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You've got kids who are engaged in their own learning, that are finding success at taking some of those risks. And kindergartners are more likely to take risks than older students sometimes. High school curriculum recommendations, again, like the PA, course standards, students, lesson plans, and daily instruction, evaluate resources for Pennsylvania standards alignment, some of the same things for assessment, district-wide. So I also included a very lengthy list of district-wide consideration. One of those is, again, this idea of a comprehensive assessment plan. There are a lot of universal screeners out there. NWEA MAP is one of them. It's a K-10. It's on a computer for most grade levels, and it takes, I don't know, maybe 2 days to give. It is a good norm-based test. I'm not an NWEA math salesman, but I have seen it work effectively, and not just in Belmont, but in the local districts around us too. Consider the analysis of lesson plans and building those professional learning communities among teachers. So again, time is of the essence, and there's never enough time. But when teachers start talking about their practice, it grows, and their professional learning grows. And I know, because I visited your schools, you have a lot of excellent, excellent teachers in this district. And so you need to draw on those strengths in order to build a best instructional practice protocol. And I agree with the worksheets. Develop district and school-wide data teams to analyze the available data, and then again, consider some of the theoretical resources I have in the report. I gave some ideas for book studies, some ideas of different places to look online for help. Just consider those if they work. And I believe that's all of mine. Questions?
Are you going to be able to share the presentation and the report for the public to see?
And Dr. Stacken has all
Yes, we can make that available to the board, is okay, on this website. Thank you for that. Thank you, great job, very thorough, thank you. Okay, for our final presentation this evening, myself and Ms. Wright want to give a budget update to the public. Again, we want to always do this mid-year. We will be hoping to pass a final budget in May. So first and foremost, you heard some of the curriculum deficiencies that we have to address. In my first 25 days here, I can tell you that we have identified a lot of weaknesses in the district's plan with curriculum and also with security. Security is hardware, software, and also procedural things as well. So my goal is to find ways in the budget to drive more dollars to academic programming and also safety and security. They are immediate needs of this district. So to do that, I have to take a lot of factors into account, and I have to present something to the public and to the board that can get approval while making space for those types of things, okay? As I started on my journey here as superintendent, I was handed 3 documents in my first 3 days, if you go back. Those 3 documents were a report from the Pittsburgh Business Times. Oh, thank you. A report from Standards & Poor's, and then an identification from the Department of Education. So let me speak to the first one first. The Pittsburgh Business Times every year issues school district rankings on several matrices. One of the biggest matrices that determines our rankings is performance on that summative assessment that she was speaking to a minute ago here. The PSSAs and our Keystone. There are many other factors going into that's the largest piece. I wrote my dissertation through the University of Pittsburgh on formative assessments, right? The benchmark tests where you check the pulse of how things are going on throughout the year. But when I was writing my dissertation in 2006, there wasn't a lot of research on benchmark testings because the standard plan wasn't available to the public yet. They didn't mass produce those yet. And so what I had to do was do my research on high-stakes testing, summative testing, PSSAs, Keystones, etc. And what I identified through the research was if you line the districts in Pennsylvania up 1 to 501, and you listed them by the median household income of the school district and the average home sale price, they almost listed identically to their performance on the PSSAs. That was a problem. Because the argument was the PSSAs are only testing how wealthy your community is, not how well you're performing academically. So what came of that in 2006 and 2008? Well, things like benchmark testing. Things about how can you change this preset determining factors. And so what schools started to do is come up with ways to be outliers, either underperform or overperform your demographics, okay? Based upon this list, we are 52 in a 3-county area. That's underperforming. We don't have the demographics to support my first example that research shows. So we have to get better. We are constantly compared to South Fayette and Upper St. Clair. We're compared often with transportation because they have their own in-house transportation also. They are top 10 on this list. They also tax their residents, South Fayette at 26 mills, Upper St. Clair 30 mills. We tax at 20 mills. So you're not comparing apples to apples there. So first and foremost, we have to address this. My goal in 3 years is to be top 10 on that list. I'm saying it publicly, you can hold me to that. We've got to increase our academic rigor. All right, the next, Standards & Poor's evaluates our bond rating, okay, right now. Okay, it's not clicking. Wait, can you just manually click it? Thank you. So Standards & Poor's released a rating. We are at an A+, which is the second to the highest. A++ is the best. It's a great financial rating, but they put a warning out to our district that our financial outlook is bleak. And they have all of these factors they use to make that determination. If you look at the end, basically, we are using deficit spending and reaching into our reserves, that you can't sustain that over time. So the district has to come up with a new financial plan moving forward, or the bond rating will decrease, which means any debt we try to incur will be taken on at a higher interest rate, etc. So that's a problem. The last was from the Department of Education. We are on targeted school improvement, and that's not something I can share publicly because it's student and staff specific, but there is a corrective action plan that we have to submit and adhere to get off the targeted school improvement list, or you then are punished into a next level of improvement, which brings along with it sanctions from the Department of Ed. So we have to get off of that list, which just justifies further. We've got to change the academic rigor in offering for all students. The example Mr. McKenna gave was perfect. You got to put the blueberries in the beginning. We can't think about fixing it at the end. We have to fix our academics. We have to drive more money to academics. And to do that, we have to free up money in the budget. So specifically speaking to the numbers, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Dr. Casag. So we received our total certified values from Allegheny County just at the beginning of the month. And as you can see, the change from last year to this year, we added 17 properties to the district. But due to district appraisals and reappraisals, we lost $15.9 million in total appraised value within the district. That represents about $350,000 of tax revenue to the district. In addition, because people are able to appeal for prior years, last year we recognized refunds of $850,000. This year we have already refunded $370,000 of tax revenue. And just for some perspective, in fiscal year 23, we refunded $106,000. So in preparing the budget and looking to be fiscally responsible, we must be reserving for this and accounting for this so that we're responsible moving forward. One of the things I'd also like to point out is if you look at the prior spending, this is just deficit or surplus for the last 6 years, 7 years here. 6 out of those 7 years were deficit spending for the district, with that one blip being in 2021 when there was an influx of COVID relief funds. So one of the other things I'd like to talk about is when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking about the zoomed out version of our governmental funds. I'm talking about the total district as a whole, not simply our general fund. Our general fund has lots of things that go in and out. The governmental fund has lots of rules and responsibilities within each of those funds, and the district has been pulling from some of those funds in order to utilize and maintain the general fund balance during these deficit spend periods. So these are our personnel cost projections that we are looking at for the next fiscal year. Our contractual salary obligations range from 1 to 5% increases, which approximate to $2.6 million increase year over year. We're looking at a 9% possible increase to our total health insurance, 5% to dental, and 3% to vision. And our Peter's employer rate is going back to 34% from 33.9%. I will point out that 69% of our largest employment base are the teachers, and they are at the top step of the salary scale that starts at $117,000 in salary.
Yes.
So what does our first draft look like? We're currently drafted looking at a $9 million deficit and how to solve that deficit. So that takes into account all the things that we've talked about, putting together the pieces for curriculum improvements, our maintenance projects, improving safety and security upgrades. That's also looking at the operational fixed costs that relate to insurance, increased cost of utilities, our supplies, replacing our technology and our Chromebooks for students. So what we will be working on between now and when we bring a draft budget to the public will be various strategies to close that budget deficit. The bigger long-term thing here is not just solving a budget for this year. It's looking beyond and looking what our debt obligations are in subsequent years.
And they said no.
And so this here is just a look of the sources and uses and how we spend our money and how we traditionally spend our money between personnel and non-personnel. On the left-hand side is our current draft budget. Clearly, we do not have fund balance to solve a deficit simply from savings of $9 million. As you can see on the right-hand side, that top little orange part, we drew almost $2 million from fund balance last year. We need to come up with a different methodology than just relying on fund balance. So we will be coming back with additional strategies when we are looking at our draft budget for this year.
Can I make one comment about the real estate assessment issue, which is a problem countywide for many districts? The courts in Allegheny County have reduced the CLR, which is the common level ratio, which is the ratio between the assessed value of the property and its actual value. In 2021, that number was 86.2. So we're looking at an 86.2% ratio. In 2022, that went down to 63.5. In 23, it stayed the same. It's just at 63.6. And in 2024, it went all the way down to 54.5. So you went from 86% essentially to 54. That's a problem for districts. That is something that was not prepared for. Nobody could account for it. It's still under appeal right now, but that's where you're seeing those dramatic drops. And it's not just this district. It's all districts in the county that have to deal with that. And it's become a very challenging issue across the board with trying to deal with a drop that dramatic in that short of time. That's really what a main factor is.
Thank you. So, anything else, Dr. Casaga?
No, again, this is only a snapshot, and we will continue to talk about the budget every month until we pass the budget. And this is going to be something that we never move away from speaking publicly about until we have a plan that we can do. We are bound by state law to pass the budget in June. I would like to pass the budget in May. I have been in situations where you present a final budget to the board in June, and the board votes that budget down. We legally have to have a budget approved by July 1. And then you're crammed, and you're making compromises, and you're just trying to get something done. So I like to have a preliminary budget posted in April, and the final budget approved in May, and then if it gets voted down by chance, we have a month to work that out. So that would be the forecast going forward. Thank you, Mr. Rankin.
I'd like to just make a few statements here before we get started with public comment. I see there's a large contingency here, so I'd like to remind everyone that this is a business meeting for the board. The board does have an agenda items that they will vote on and discuss. Please act accordingly. I understand that many of you here are here to talk about the busing situation, and I know this is an important issue for everyone. However, I would remind you all that outbursts of any kind or any disruptive behavior will not be tolerated during this business meeting. That said, public comment will be limited to residents and taxpayers of the district. Being that there's a large number of intents to speak about one particular issue, I would ask, if you can, to try not to be repetitive with your comments. If someone else has said it, you really don't need to explain the same point. If you have a group of people, if you designate one speaker on their behalf, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, bear in mind that public comment is just that. This is your chance to comment on items before the board. This is not an opportunity to question or examine board members or on the school board or anyone else. There is no obligation to board members or anyone else to answer anything discussed in public comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Mike, can't hear you.
I'd just like to say I appreciate Dr. Castagna's presentations. I know this board has really not talked about education in many years. So I appreciate his leadership moving forward. On to public comments. Mrs. Heenan.
So we would like to.
Yes.
We would like to invite any resident or taxpayer of the Chartiers Valley School District who wishes to address the board. Please state your name and address when you approach the board. We appreciate your interest. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes, like our solicitor said. And Kelly, did anyone sign to speak on current?
Yes, we have 2 speakers. The first one is Matt Dwyer.
Good evening, Matt Sawyer, 4003 Coast Circle, Collier Township. Agenda item 13.1, the 25-26 calendar. There's no snow makeup days listed, if that could just be considered or noted. There's none listed on there. And then the other thing was 13.2, early retirement for the teachers union. Could that be explained in terms and conditions of that, when you get to that agenda item? Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's a personal matter, and the union has to approve that, so we can't go public with that. It's just internal. Mr. Sable, Dr. Sable, I apologize, has built in some snow days that he can explain. Do you have a counter over your thought?
All right, thank you. There are 2 days that are built in with children this spring break. One of them, first one will be April 1st, which is a Wednesday. And then we added a professional development day on Tuesday, April the 7th. We would utilize that if need be, and then we will post a professional development day towards the end of the year.
We also schedule 181 student days, correct?
Correct.
So we have 1 day extra that we effectively can knock off in there if needed.
And then depending, I'm assuming if the administration applies for the flexible instruction days, those days could be used in lieu of using a school day. You can only use 5 of those a year, and then you would tack on, I'm assuming after you use those 3 other days.
You're not limited amount for those days.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Next is Ashley Murphy.
Ashley Murphy, 157 Scott. I actually wanted to talk about the calendar as well. I don't know, you might want to take another review, and if you want this, you can see it. But between the calendar and the center section, I don't know if you can see my purple remarks, it's not consistent. New teacher induction is listed as the 18th, 19th, and 20th, but on the calendar, it's the 15th, 16th,
one again says it starts on the 24th, the other's the 23rd. So there is a bunch of inconsistencies throughout this calendar, so you might want to look before you vote. And also even the approval date says 2024. And then the other thing that I just wanted to talk about was the agenda item 13.7, the Curve Point pilot proposal. I tried to look it up and see what this was online to kind of get an idea.
Well, excuse me, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, the 13.7 Curve Point pilot proposal, there was no proposal attached to the agenda. So as far as budget and finance, I know the board has a financial obligation to its taxpayers, as we received earlier today. But there's nothing in here stating what this is besides the brief description online. But again, without the proposal there, we as a community and the taxpayers don't know if it costs anything, but what it is, for it to be brought up to a vote. I feel that just, again, if we can get some more transparency on these items.
Yes, I can comment on that. First of all, it is a student safety initiative, so the details can't be specifically public. We don't want the bad guys to see details of our safety plan. But the responsibility for the taxpayer is zero. This is a pilot program through Carnegie Mellon University. It will cost the district nothing.
Well, when we go over it, we'll stipulate that things are fixed, you know.
I mean, it's like 2 months are consistent. Like throughout all of the months, they're not consistent in the center versus the actual calendar.
You see with, yeah, so, that will be fixed.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for that.
We have no more comments.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to announce that we had an executive session prior to this public meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and safety matters. On to the superintendent's report.
So tonight we have two of our student representatives who are patiently waiting for the opportunity to speak. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Brady and Layla.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. The CV Thespian Troupe traveled to Westchester University from January 2nd to January 4th, joining other thespian troupes around the state. They performed Everyone Gets Eaten by a Shark, a one-act, and also watched other schools' performances and took theater-related workshops. On January 11th, the theater program then participated in the High School Drama Awards for their fall performance of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Overall, they received 9 nominations and won 3. Best Lighting Design Operation, Best Creative Use of Special Effects, and Best Backstage Crew. Theo Kistler was offered artistic acceptance to Point Park University and a $5,000 scholarship. Student Council is currently selling chocolate-covered pretzels and Oreos, as well as nut butters, in order to fundraise for their future endeavors in the spring. On February 3rd, the CV Choir will be having its annual Sound Wave recital. Over the past month, chorus students have prepared songs of their choosing to perform individually, in a duet, or in a group. Please go see it. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This month in athletics, we have had some wonderful things happening. Last night in the high school gym, many members of the community came out to send off the CV dance troupe to the UDA Nationals competition in Orlando, Florida. The team will compete on Friday and hopes to hold on to their second place title in hip-hop or even place first in the nation in hip-hop. Now to boys basketball, who is off to a 15-3 start this season, and the team is a 10-2 in sectional play and have just clinched players. Now the girls basketball team, whose season is off to a great start, and they are currently 13-6 overall in 9-1 in section play. They are sitting in second place in their section and have clinched players. These teams both celebrated their senior night earlier this month and recognized their amazing seniors for their hard work over the past 4 years. Now to the swimming dive team, who has had a very successful season and will be sending 3 people to the review qualifiers. In varsity hockey, the team is defending their win of the Penguins Cup Championship and are currently experiencing another stellar season with 14 wins and just 1 loss so far this year. Offensively, the Parkey team is in the top 5 in the league in goals per game and power play percentage. This is all I have to report for athletics this month. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night.
Do you have anything else, Dr. Costanza?
No, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. On to the solicitor's report. Before I call on Mr. Rakunas, I'd just like to welcome him. He's on the agenda this evening as the district solicitor, so welcome to charge of that.
I appreciate that very much. Being it's my first meeting here, no, I have no items to report outside the things that we discussed in executive session, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the informational agenda. Anything for Shasta, Mrs. Sexton? Mr. Bollinger for Pathfinder.
Yes, we met with the AIU last meeting. I said that we had got a document they wanted to standardize services, who's responsible, whether it's Pathfinder, whether it's the AIU. We had several questions, so their solicitor and the head of the AIU came to the meeting and we had a discussion. I think we just received the new draft, so we voted on that next month, and we had our reorganization meeting, and all the officers did this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Trainer for the Allegheny Intermediate Unit.
Yes, we had a meeting last evening, and we had a presentation on MTSS and positive behavior intervention in sport, which many people know is SOBIS, by Shanna Branfeld and Christine Frazier. It talked about how those programs encourage positive behavior and define expectations so that we are teaching that instead of punishing those. 72 schools from the EIU were recognized in Hershey for their contributions and their work in their school districts along these two lines. They also announced that we have a collaboration with Stephen Covey called Lead in Me program to develop leaders with our students. One of the main items we received was an audit report, which I have here in detail, if anyone would like to read. Refund checks, if applicable, should be received soon by districts. These are monies that come back to the districts for anything that was not used for schools such as Pathfinder and others. And we mentioned Remake Learning earlier this evening. Tyler Stamstad represented the AIU and Remake Learning at Davos in Switzerland. So we are international. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tura, Parkway Western Technology Center.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. I got some nice things to report on Parkway. We have a administrator out there, Mr. Snediger. He is one phenomenal grant writer. In December, he got us a grant of $80,000. And this January, he just got us another one for $450,000. And last year, he got us almost $700,000. So this gentleman's a genius when it comes to grant writing. So we owe him a debt of thanks. Also, Parkway West we hired Howard Hanna Commercial Real Estate to keep us abreast of the PTC school that's in Oakdale that's for sale. It's a technical college. They went bankrupt. And the first quarter of this year, Chartiers Valley CV students led the honor roll. We had 34 students out of Parkway. And last but not least, the Parkway board would like this board to make sure they approved the operational budget and the torture budget. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's on the agenda later on. Thanks, Mrs. Wright, for the finance presentation this evening. Moving on to the board minutes. The superintendent recommends, and I may I have a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes for January 14th, 2025? So moved. Motion made by Mr. Tura, and a second. Second by Ms. Heen. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the UPMC Care Mobile contract? Motion made by Ms. Heen, second by Mr. Chura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources report for January 28th, 2025? Motion made by Ms. Heen. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Chura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve Matthew Rakunis as District Solicitor for the Chartiers Valley School District? Terms as stipulated in the engagement letter from Matthew Rakunis of Rakunis Law Group LLC dated January 14, 2025 and effective January 15, 2025. Motion made by Ms. Heen, second by Mr. Chura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy 908.1, relations with parents and guardians, chain of command. Motion made by Mr. Montani. May I have a second? Second by Mrs. Trainer. Any discussion on this item? So this is the final reading, so this becomes board approved.
The only thing we know would add to the vote is that which is approved tonight,
If it's approved tonight, we'll make it available on the website tomorrow.
Thank you, Microsoft. Thank you, sir.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the first read of policy 810, transportation, and update to the current policy language to conform to state guidance? Motion made by Ms. Heen. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Brodsky. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the organizational chart for the 2024-2025 school year? Motion made by Mr. Montani. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Chura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the 2025-2026 school district calendar? Well, it'll be in discussion, yeah. Yeah, motion made by Mr. Montani, and a second by Ms. Heen. So any discussion on this item? So, Dr. Sable, you'll make the appropriate changes, especially if there's conflicting,
I'll make it tonight, send it over before we leave.
yeah.
Starting in days off on all the items, saying, we publish that, make corrections.
Can't hear you, man.
Correct.
And I did it again, I apologize. I apologize. So the key will be corrected to match the dates on the calendar. So when that is published on the website, the corrected version will go out, but the substance of the calendar will remain the same. The beginning of school, the end of school, and the holiday breaks and so on.
Correct, yes, I apologize for that mistake.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the early retirement incentive for the Teachers Union of the Chartiers Valley Federation of Teachers, contingent upon their approval? Motion made by Mrs. Trainer. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Brodsky. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve Erica Peters to travel to the 2025 NAFME All-Eastern Music Festival with 2 merit-selected students from April 23rd, 2025 through April 27th, 2025. Motion made by Mr. Montani, second by Mr. Chora. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to accept the PDD Ready to Learn Tax Equity Supplement in the amount of $303,975 for use in the manners detailed in the text of the resolution? Motion made by Ms. King. May I have a second?
No.
Second by Mr. Brodsky. Any discussion on this item? Do you want to explain a little bit what this means? Mrs. Reddy, do you want to explain the Ready to Learn Tax Equity Supplement?
Yes, so this is additional state funding that requires the board to use these funds for the 5 purposes that are outlined in the resolution, such as mitigating or preventing an increase in the millage rate, supplementing the amount calculated by the school district for the Homestead Act, establishing or maintaining or expanding a program provided by the school district that supplements senior tax rebates, mitigating or replacing the loss of revenue received by the district resulting from a decision of a court of the Commonwealth related to an assessment appeal or reducing debt within the district. So those are the restricted uses of accepting this from the state.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve payment of invoices listed for construction work provided to the district in the amount of $2,501.96? Motion made by Ms. King, second by Mr. Jura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve Peter Shintz to travel to the Austin Convention Center to attend the SXSW EDU South by Southwest EDU Conference from March 2nd, 2025 through March 6th, 2025. Motion made by Mrs. Stratton. May I have a second? Second by Mrs. Sexton. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the Curve Point pilot proposal, which outlines a plan to deliver a pilot project in 2 phases for real-time spatial monitoring system and analytics platform. The project aims to provide actionable insights into personnel and student behavior and enable data-driven decision-making. This program will be provided to the district at no cost. Motion made by Mr. Montani, and a second? Second by Mr. Chura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. Motion to approve the Parkway West jointure budget for the 2025-2026 school year of $1,079,716, with the Chartiers Valley School District share being $80,308.31. Motion made by Ms. King. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Jura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. Motion to approve the Parkway West general operating budget for the 2025-2026 school year of $9,603,622, with Chartiers Valley School District share being $1,007,727.42. Motion made by Ms. King. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Jura. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion passes. On to Ms. King for public comments on non-agenda items.
Kelly, did anyone sign up to speak on non-agenda items?
Yes, the first one is Tim. I should know that by now, sorry.
Thank everybody for their time and attendance. Couple reports coming out about the tragic accident where the girl was killed in Johannesburg. Third-party driver had cocaine in his system. The driver of the cars now will probably get a reduced sentence due to that. So let that sink in for a minute. Third-party driver tested positive after an accident with kids on board. One of the students walking around the bus, had she been in her seat, they said she probably would have survived. Please let that sink in. Another report, which we previously talked about, was a child being forgotten on a van. 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Just think about if that was your child. I've asked it before, and I'll ask it again. What price are you putting on a child's safety? You talk about the budget, and I understand that. I'm a reasonable person. But when you talk about our rankings, where they're at, and these teachers, no offense, sorry, the numbers are low. Yet their pay scale is quite high. Perhaps complacency has set in. Perhaps we need to go and hire younger, more eager teachers. Just putting that out there. I'm not targeting anybody, but you're targeting the busing. And that's a problem for me, because that's our kids' safety. You hide behind anonymity, you drug this meeting out so that one of the newscasts left. Congratulations, great job. I find that the anonymity and that the fact that nobody wants to answer questions to anybody after meetings is hysterical. My hat goes off to Mr. Olringer, Mr. Borowski, the gentleman from Parkway who stays and talks to people. Here's concerns about what the parents are feeling. It's got to stop. We want our bus drivers. I would like, if this goes through and you do hire third party, I would like each and every one of you to have to go out to the bus stops and answer the kids' questions. Mommy, Daddy, why are they taking our bus driver away? You guys have to answer that. Because from what I heard of those numbers, if that's all good, you're right, we're in a deficit. What put us in the deficit? Did the construction of the buildings put us in deficit? Did the teacher's contract put us in deficit? I checked just my blanket numbers, 97% graduation rate like 5 or 6 years ago, down to 92%. Our national ranking, 3,000 across the country. Yet you're targeting the bus drivers. It's like, I don't know, going out and giving somebody money for doing a bad job. And the ones who do
Thank you,
job,
sir. Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Exactly. Again, applaud for.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Matt Meyer.
Good evening, Max Meyer, 4003 Coast Circle, Collier Township. I wasn't gonna, this wasn't part of my original comment, but the STEM and curriculum, I have a first grader, that's my only child. It's sad and exciting what we heard tonight. Sad about the curriculum, exciting about what could come, excited about STEM. So thank you for looking into the curriculum in STEM. I think that's going to set up a lot of students for success in life. So glad we're heading that way. My original comment was about our bus drivers. I want to thank them for getting my first grader home safe every day, including in the inclement weather days. Lots of accidents, lots of bad weather, no incidents with our drivers. They're safe and they care about our kids. And thank you to Mr. Mike from Bus 59.
Next is Rich Pawlowski.
Hello, my name is Rich Pawlowski. I live on Elm Street in Bridgeville. In 9th and 10th grade, for the health curriculum, there's a section in the mental health unit called The Science of Happiness, an experiment in read you about this assignment. In our mental health unit, we explore self-esteem and ways to improve your self-esteem. Many studies show that the best way to improve your self-esteem and be happy is to show gratitude. The assignment in health class was to write to an adult at CV who has made a difference, influenced you, or even as simple as just being nice. The attached letter is from a student who picked you. I hope you enjoy the letter and know that you make a difference. I have a copy of this letter blown up so I can read it, but I have the original. Dear bus driver of van 29 last year, I am first sorry that I forgot your name, but I would like to thank you for all you have done for me. You drove me from my house to Community School West. You made me laugh. You told me your story, and I had such a fun time on the bus with you last year. I am glad to say I am back at CV, but I wish I still had you as a bus driver. You really did help me, and you were so nice, kind, and I am so very thankful to that. Thanks once again. And I don't know if the bus driver of van 29 from a year ago was here, and she'd like to stand so we can thank her. You put so much into worrying about this budget, and when you have people who, by keeping somebody in your school, by being nice to them and caring about them and telling her story, brings them back into CV and is taking care of the educational development of possibly a troubled kid. This happened in 2016, 2017. You still have this driver here today with a lot of other drivers who put their heart into this job. And instead of this, you're trying to blame your budget problem on the backs of our drivers. And what you are doing is throwing them under the bus. That came out regarding this snow event. When these guys worked there, you know what? I mean, whoever didn't take responsibility. We take, Chartiers take responsibility for their actions, and our drivers went into action to make sure they could do whatever they could for their kids, even when it seems like it wasn't a good idea. So maybe think about the people who care about them.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you, sir, for being so prompt with your time. Did you maybe all
Sir, your 3 minutes are up. You've been warned. You've been warned. Stop. Stop now. Thank you. Everyone, sir, everybody gets the same amount of time. Everybody gets the same.
Don't raise your voice to him. Show up on time.
Yeah, that is true.
Next is Alexis Soretti.
Don't raise your voice. One of you got ourselves, don't raise your voice. And show up on time.
Quit speak. Be respectful.
Okay, Ron,
I'm not even engaging in that.
Go ahead, man.
Two ways street.
We can't hear you.
Start the clock yet.
Hello.
You try now.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
We yelled too loud.
Hi, my name is Alexis Soretti. I live on Sunrise Drive in Culver Township. I came here today to talk about safety of a different sort. If you don't already have a plan to address immigration and customs enforcement officials or those posing as ICE who may try to gain access to our schools, I hope you will come up with one. The threat of ICE raids in and around our area is already scaring some parents into keeping their kids home. Kids aren't going to school already. Although school grounds should be unlikely places for raids, as they've been designated as sensitive locations, it seems that may be changing. The U.S. Supreme Court has established that public schools must be accessible to all kids, regardless of immigration status. Further, when kids are present in school buildings, the school is responsible for their care in place of us, their parents. Schools have significant authority as well as an obligation to take steps to protect kids, including undocumented ones. Throughout my child's years at CV,
I've been very impressed with our administrative support staff. They're the first friendly faces that you see when you walk into any of our buildings and would be part of any frontline resistance in a raid. Please ensure there's a protocol that they're fully aware of so that they may request ID, a warrant, immediately contact district council, and above all, not grant ICE access to any school or any of our students' data. Arm them with the policy and your support so they can stay safe while keeping our kids safe.
We have an internal procedure in place for that. Ms. Beckett, who is the assistant principal of this building that we're in right now, took the lead on that, developed the plan. We shared it with all of our principals and our SROs. We know exactly what to do if that would happen. The AIU issued a recommendation today to all school districts, and our plan falls in line perfectly with what they're recommending. But Ms. Beckett deserves credit for that. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Juliana Benner. That's. If you could provide your address whenever you get to the podium, as you didn't list it on the paper, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
She's a student.
She's a student.
She's a student.
She's, yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I live on Hilltop Road. But I wanted to start off by saying that I like the idea that you're trying to implement more of the STEM program type things, but we already have it, so I'm kind of confused on why you're trying to implement that. We don't have the money to be spending, we have engineering that you did cut, that's why it's not on Atlas for you to see. STEM is run also by our computer science programs that we have 3 teachers for, and we also have a robotics kind of startup in the middle school where we literally had to code and create a robot. If you were interested in that sort of thing, you join the robotics team in high school, or you become a part of the computer programming classes, or you can join our parkway mechanics programs. I feel as though our STEM programs should not be voted on solely for their access to current scientists, because our goal should be to create the next generation of scientists. So I understand your one for that influence of a real in-action scientist, but I don't think it's deemed necessary. We're trying to create new innovations, new minds. You don't want to look at the same old ones and just do a copy paste that does nothing. And I also wanted to say that our PLW program for the biomedical industry and everything, we performed experiments regarding what my team did. Weight and SpO2 levels, and 90% of the kids at our school did not even know what an SpO2 level was. That's kind of concerning, just saying. My partner and I also ran for our year-long project, a fundraiser, with proceeds going to the Huntington's Disease Society of America. We've had STEM-oriented walkthroughs that no one from the board has attended except for Dr. Sable, but he was at the board all the time, and we really appreciate you coming and supporting us. Ms. King loves you for it. And could you also give reasoning to the students as to why you're boarding off our bathrooms in the art wing with wood?
Could you repeat that last question and
Yeah.
closer to the microphone, please?
Like, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
You boarded up the bathroom in our art wing, and now we can't use it, but I don't understand the point, because now the same kids that you're trying to keep out of the bathroom are just gonna be wandering around trying to go to the bathroom and find a better excuse, so I don't think that was very counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's a student matter, so part of that's confidential. I just want to say vaguely that there was damage that we had to block off and then fix. That was a temporary inconvenience, and it's being corrected, but there was damage that needed to be fixed.
Okay, all I would say is just send us an email, so that we don't think that we don't have access to a bathroom.
Yeah, I appreciate it coming from a student. We have to protect the confidentiality of those involved. And so sometimes when kids know somebody may be in trouble, and then we make a statement about that, it kind of can point to them, and we have to try to avoid that. So I know how that can be confusing to you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you asked that. I'm welcome students to attend board meetings always. And I just want to let you know that we're fixing it, and it's just temporary.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question there about that?
Of course.
How long has it been out of use?
I first noticed on Monday, but I don't know, but I know that people saw, I think the principals putting it up last week.
Do we have a timeline on when it went fixed?
I think it was today, it was when it was shut down. I don't have a timeline, I just know it's being fixed. I hope maybe this week.
Yeah, I have pictures of it from Monday.
Okay.
The bathroom. And I know, I'm not a guy, so it's obviously not my problem, but, I know a lot of the guys are now just like hopelessly wandering around the halls, and now they actually have an excuse to because they don't have a bathroom on their floor. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Ms. Estes.
Is Ashley Murphy.
You're gonna have to hold it.
Ashley Murphy, 157, Portrait Spring. A lot of the stuff that I wanted to say has already been discussed, but I do want to mention with everyone here, whoever was driving bus 53 last week and was not on the route and got my kids to school, if you are here, thank you. Thank you. And like I said, all the other stuff was discussed about, I wanted to talk about the ice parade action plan, but I do want to mention just one thing. I did not check what time it was when the board made it to this stage, but I do know at 6:37, it was just our student representatives and the secretary. And none of the board members are out here yet. So I do feel like we can get maybe try to be a little bit more on time for all of us who are spending our time here. And I know you want the community to be involved, but we would like a little bit more respect on that end as well as to value our time for being here. It just happened to be a really long day, and if it didn't start so late, maybe we could have gotten home earlier. But that was just it. Thank you.
We have no more comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to announce that our next board meeting is February 11th, 2025. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Motion made by Ms. Heath, may I have a second? Second from Mr. Montani, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Go get your kid. Oh, me too.